you are a member of the Corville?
Colville.
Carville Confederate tribe. What is that exactly? And how is that different from the other tribes?
Well, some of the tribes in the Northwest and other places, they had it so they put a bunch of different tribes together. Like the Nez Perce were punished after Chief Joseph, tried to run away from the cavalry. So they moved him from what was then like Oregon, and they actually dispersed the Nez Perce into several different Native nations. And so some of them came up to Colville, and they became a part of one of the many confederated tribes that we have, which is about like 16.
Oh.
So there's a bunch of us, right? And we have over 8,500 members of our tribe. We also have the largest land base in Washington State.
Really? So you grew up, so when you say they did it, who
The U.S. federal government.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so Carville is in Washington State?
Yes.
And so you literally grew up on Indian territory, Native American territory.
Well, yes, but I did not grow up on the reservation.
Oh, you did not?
Right.
And why not?
Right by the reservation.
And why did you grow up on the reservation itself?
My mom didn't want me to grow up on the reservation. So, actually, I don't even know, right? Like, she decided to move us like very nearby so we could go visit family and when we wanted to. But yeah, we lived in the nearby town, which is called Colville.
That's amazing. And so did you grow up with your father and mother?
No, I just grew up with my mother.
And where was your father?
He was on the reservation.
Oh, he was on the reservation?
Yep.
And your mother lived there for a while and she moved off?
Yeah, and actually we moved around quite a bit.
Oh.
So we are very nomadic, which is very traditional for Colville people.
Oh, I see. And was she married to him at one point?
No, she was not.
And, oh, I see. So you were born out of wedlock?
Yes.
So do Native Americans get married in the way that normal people do?
Actually, 50% of us or more are actually Christians.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of us are Christians. So a lot of people do get married, in church or get married by the state or different ways.
So even the Native Americans who live on the territory, they are Christians as well?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the different nations were actually divided up by churches, right? So we're part of in our part of the state, we're Catholics, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so there's also a lot of different churches on the reservation now, though.
So did they become Christians as a result of the influence of white Americans? Were they Christians before that?
Well, no, they were forcibly, that's part of the forcible assimilation that the U.S. government wanted us to be, in order to be assimilated, they thought we'd be better as Christians right? So.
What were they before Christian?
We practice our own different religious traditions that are actually, and spiritual traditions that are very deep,
And that involved God?
Like a creator, maybe it was just a different word for it.
But it was the same God?
It was not Jesus. Is that what you mean? Like God, like Christian God?
The Christian God.
Yeah, no.
Were the Native Americans serving the Christian God prior to white folks coming in?
No. We had our own idea of what that was.
Oh, they just made up something?
Well, it wasn't made up, and we lived there for over 12,000 years, so it's not like it was just made up. It was a long tradition.
Oh, I see. And so does that explain why it's been said that prior to Christianity, Native Americans were like savages because they didn't really believe in a God?
Well, I think they said
God?
that because they really wanted to steal our land, right? And that was a way to be like, hey, these people are not Christians, so therefore they are savages and that they cannot manage their own line or their own land and people.
That's interesting. Were they acting like savages?
It depends on what you mean. Like, were we like murdering people like the settlers? I don't know. We did not come in like that, right? Because we actually tried to live in harmony with other people. And obviously there was warfare, right? Because we're people, we're complicated, different things happen. But it wasn't just like, we had reasons why we did the things we did. So in my mind, you can use the word savages, and certainly the constant, different court cases do.
Right.
But
I'm glad you're here because now I can hear both sides. Why didn't at that time they were called Indians? Is that bad to call the Native American Indians?
You know what's lovely about that is a lot of us have a lot of different opinions about that.
Yeah.
I call myself an Indian.
Oh,
I don't have a problem with it, but when I was young, I did, because the way they used it was very like they said it like, very racist.
And when you said they, you mean the white people?
Yeah, because Colville is mostly a white town.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And so why didn't the Indians, create a beautiful place before the white people came?
We did.
Were there like buildings and?
Well, there was definitely organized cities of like 1 million people in different places, of native people, right? So we actually did have organization, we did have civilization. It just wasn't as destructive as what is going on now.
And so like when you said we had organization, did they have were they living outside in tents or were they living in buildings?
It was both, right?
It was
Because
both.
I mean, the thing is, even now, after, like all these genocides have happened and continue to happen, there's over 560 federally recognized nations, right, in the US just as we speak. And each one of those like has their own traditions, right? They have their own histories and the way that they live together.
Right.
Some of us were more nomadic than others. Some of us like lived the same place all year round. So very different.
Is it true that we know there were different tribes before white people came?
Mm-hmm.
Were they warring against each other? They were killing each other, and in all of history, somebody's always trying to take over someone else for the power of it. Were the natives, the Americans or Indians, were they warring against each other, trying to take over?
Well, there was obviously always some of that,
Yeah.
but a lot of times, like during warfare, it actually was seen as like, counting coup. Like if you just went and touched somebody, another warrior, if you're warriors, right, and it was the men who went out and did that, that was enough. You didn't have to kill anybody. You didn't even have to hurt anybody. Like just touching another warrior was seen as like, you lost, right?
Oh, I see.
So it wasn't to me like as always destructive as it is now. So
Is it better for the Indians now that white people have come and created an amazing civilization? And are they better off now, or were they better off then?
I mean, well, I would disagree with the amazing civilization, and they were certainly. I think they were better off then. Yeah, certainly. So.
And in what way were they better off then?
Well, it's every way. I mean, which way weren't they? Like, there wasn't all this disease here. There wasn't all this destruction and environmental, destruction, and there wasn't all this, hatred. There wasn't all this, different cars, and even horses were brought over by Europeans. So all these different things that really destroyed, the land and the people. So.
But isn't it better to progress in life rather than just staying and living on empty land with tents?
Well,
and
that's
things
the
like
thing.
That?
We're always progressing. Like Native people had enough food, from my nation, we had enough food to live, to create art, to be happy together, to live with the land in harmony. And so to me, that's totally ideal, right?
Right. So did one tribe hate another tribe, and another tribe hated another tribe in the way that human beings are today? Or did all the Indians love one another?
There's over 560 recognized nations.
Right.
So obviously there's going to be fighting, right?
So
Not
they
everybody's.
hated one another the same way people hate each other now.
I would disagree with that. I think it was very different.
You
because
think they loved one another?
I think some of them did, but I also think that they just respected each other's autonomy to be different, right? And to let them be on their own and not always trying to make them think the way that they think.
And so how's your tribe doing now? How are they doing now?
I mean, what do you mean?
Are they happy? Are they creative, and are they improving upon what they have? How are they doing? Have they assimilated with the whites, or?
I think there has been a lot of assimilation. One of the exciting things I do see happening is language revitalization happening in my nation.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying to actually get back some of the culture that we lost, right? So.
Do the Indians feel like victims in the way that the blacks feel like victims?
Well, they were different kinds of genocides that were committed against Black people and against Native people. But see, when you have like theft, like, I think there is, somebody who was a victim, So when you have dispossession, when you have like a person coming in and forcing you to be a certain way, like that to me is, like you're not going to be okay from that situation.
And so they do feel like victims?
I don't know if I would use the word victims, but, and I think some people, right, it's always a mix. Some people are doing well in a capitalist nation, right? Some people are really not doing well. Like we have the highest rates of poverty, of suicide, of getting murdered by police in terms of the numbers. Like there's less than 2 million of us. So, right, like there's less than 1% of us of the population. So we, I wouldn't say things are okay,